I was feeling ill. I could not even swallow a typical tonsillitis infection. I had a fever of 100 plus. I have always been plagued with tonsil problems. Anyway, I thought I would just get some penicillin or a shot and be sent my way, but after the blood tests, the doctor on duty said that she would rather have me stay over for observation. I was in pain all night. So the next day, after being on Rocephin and antibiotic and it was not clearing the swelling up, she decided that I needed to have a tracheotomy and that I would have to have surgery. I was worried. I had a funny feeling that I was going to die. I was nervous. They told me everything would be fine. I remember that the following 4 weeks, I kept seeing the time 14:14 on my clock, which was weird. It happened various times. I would be at work and I would look up and what would you know? It was 14:14 or 2:14 p.m. anyway. Back to the story. Now all I remember was being anesthetized. The next thing I know, I am still on my back. At first it seemed like there was nothingness, like I was on my back afloat, and it was pitch dark. A very scary darkness. I remember I kept putting my hands in front of my face. I could not see them or my body, but I knew that they were there. Then I start hearing this low hum and it was like being underwater, like when you are under and you can hear noise and it's muffled. That kind of thing. I was wondering why it was so dark. Nothing else mattered. I could not remember anything prior to this. Not the surgery, anything. It was as if this was the only thing I could think of. I then noticed that while it was pitch dark, it felt as if I was in a tunnel and all along the tunnel were doorways. But the whole tunnel, I could sense, was like being in a cave, sort of rocky, not too rocky, but kind of smooth. At least that's my impression of it. So then, I am feeling a little more afraid, like what's going on here? It felt like I was like that for an hour. Just there. Then I could see a pinpoint of white light in front of me in the distance, the size of a pencil eraser head, that size. So, I sensed that I start moving in that direction, but it felt like something was pulling me there. I don't feel as if I was doing it. At this point, I was like floating to an upright position. Then going slowly towards that pinpoint of light. Then I knew that there were little doorways all along this tunnel and I felt that I could, if I wanted to, go into any of those doorways. I felt at the time that if I did I would not come back, but my attention was on the light. In an instant, I thought, Grandma. And I was instantly in the light. I kept saying, "You're not dead. I am not dead. You're not dead." She said, "No, I am not, and you are not either." My grandmother had died 3 years prior, but at that moment I could not remember that, just that she was not dead, and that she was so alive and well. She had died of dementia complications. She invited me to sit and have coffee like we used to all the time at her house. Her table was there, the chairs. She looked like she did when she was in her 30s. She had on a purple dress, like a nice one she had with flowers on it. Except that, the flowers seemed to glow a fluorescent yellow. Then I noticed that there was a fluorescent light that emanated from the top of the room. I started feeling so good, like, I can't describe it. Love, or like the first time you kiss. Electricity. Butterflies in your stomach, like the best drug. I don't know how to describe it, it felt so good. I then got a little panicky because I noticed that there was no light source, it was just there. That's when she touched my hand that I noticed that I looked down and could see my hand. It was there, but it looked white, almost fluorescent, and she told me that it was all right. All this conversation was in Spanish, by the way, and said, "Let's drink the coffee." I did. But I noticed that it was not hot and had no taste. It was lukewarm, but yet there was steam coming from it, like it was hot, but it was not. It's like when you are sick and there's no taste. Anyway, I tell her that we, family, think of her every day. She stated that she knew. She knew that we loved her very much and she loved us. Then I noticed that the room was dome-like. That in one section, the left side of that domed room, was as if a curtain, and I saw my grandfather on my mom's side peek though. And I saw another lady. She was heavy-set, short with a long black ponytail. I wanted to say something, and that is when my grandmother told me, "You have to go, you can't stay here. It's not your time." I then felt terrible and started to cry. I told her, "But Grandma, I want to stay here." It felt so wonderful, I did not want to leave. I remember begging in Spanish, "Please, I want to stay with you, I never want to leave here." She said, "You will be back here when it's your time, don't worry." Then she said, "Tell everyone I love them and think of them all the time." At this point I was still saying but I wanna stay. Then I heard this loud pop. It felt like I was hit in the chest with a sledgehammer made of fire. I remember coming to and gagging. I was on life support, all the tubes etc. I felt terrible. I noticed my dad was there and the rest of the family. I don't remember what happened next, but I do remember telling him that I needed a paper, I had to write something. I seen Grandma. I passed out again but wrote in Spanish this account that I just wrote about here. My dad has the note somewhere. I was getting worse. They had to life flight me to Modesto. I was in the intensive care unit for 2 weeks. It was all a blur for me. I was in and out for the most part of the 2 weeks until the last couple of days. I also remember when I came to when they life flighted me to Modesto and I was in the intensive care unit. I could hear a choir, but it sounded so angelic is the only way to describe it. I could not talk, I had to write everything down. I asked the nurse if someone had choir music on. She replied, "No. It's not allowed in intensive care unit, i.e. radios etc." I also told her that there were other people here. I felt as if family was there. She said no one had come in yet, but that they were on their way from Los Baños. It was very strange indeed. Overall, I was lucky to be alive, let alone functioning. They said that I might not ever speak again or have brain damage because I was out for almost 5 minutes while they struggled to bring me back on the table. That's the gist of my story, but I have paperwork, medical records to prove what was so strange. I coded at 2:14 p.m. The same time I was seeing weeks before. How weird is that? I asked the nurses about this. I told them what I saw and they said that it was probably due to the drugs and the trauma that occurred. I don't know. I believe it was real. Usually when people have surgery, they just wake up in the recovery room and don't see dead relatives. Anyway, that's my story. I had another experience there in the Modesto intensive care unit when they took me to extract some teeth that were causing some of the problems. They put me under again for surgery and to put a smaller tube in. I remember saying, "Hey, I'm not out yet." The doctor could not hear I was, but I was yelling. I could see him come to do the extracting. Then I noticed that I was in the corner of the ceiling looking down on it,